Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace, my go-to for building a website and online shop. Hello dear friends, today I'm starting another new painting and another new two-part series, with this video focusing on the journey from conceptualization to underpainting, and part 2 coming up next month will showcase the color oil painting portion. Real quick before I begin, if you'd like to see a 30-minute tutorial of this video, along with hundreds of hours of exclusive content and monthly art rewards, feel free to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/happydartist. As with all my artwork, the first step in a painting's journey is the concept sketch, which I'm doing in a small sketchbook using a mechanical pencil. This piece is for an upcoming gallery show with the theme Year of the Dragon, so I decided to go with a woman with a dragon tattoo on her back. This piece may also look similar to an older painting of mine titled The Secret Painter, and I thought it would be a fun way to revisit an old theme using my new art school knowledge. Remember how in a previous video I toyed with the idea of repainting some of my older artwork, the same way that Taylor Swift is re-recording her old albums? Well, I'm finally doing it. After finishing the concept sketch, I took a photo of it, used Photoshop to crop it to the exact aspect ratio as my panel, which is 4x5, and then I placed a square grid over it to help me transfer the sketch onto the panel later. Now it's time to prepare the panel. First, I'm drawing a grid on the panel that matches the same grid on my concept sketch. The panel measures 16 by 20 inches and I'm using a 2 by 2 inch squares for the grid. I usually like to keep my grid squares a bit on the larger side because 1, I am impatient, and 2, I like to still rely a bit on freehand sketching to help finalize the proportions and composition. I find that with freehand sketching, I have more control over exaggerating the gesture and flow of the piece, whereas if I transfer using small, detailed grids, the pose can come out quite rigid. I forgot to record this, but I sometimes take an eraser and partially erase the pencil lines to make them more faint so the paint can cover them up more easily. After drawing the grid and erasing the lines, I take the panel outside and spray it with artist fixative so the pencil lines don't smudge. After the fixative dries in about 30 minutes or so, I use a paper towel, Gamsol, and Bohemian Green Earth oil paint to tone the panel. I first dip the paper towel in the clean Gamsol and wipe it around the panel. Then I squeeze the oil paint directly onto the panel and use the moistened paper towel to smear it around the already wet surface. This ensures an even, semi-transparent tone that allows the grid lines to faintly show through. It's important to do this step outside or in a very well-ventilated room, as the fumes from Gamsol are not good for you, even if they are odorless. Finally, it's time to paint. For the underpainting, I first use Bohemian Green Earth oil paint mixed with Gamsol to faintly sketch in the lines while using my gridded concept sketch as reference. To keep the lines clean and light, I mix the Bohemian Green Earth with titanium white, then dip my brush in Gamsol, then load up on the light grayish green paint, and then I make sure to not use too much Gamsol by wiping my brush on my paper towel. I can also do a few test paint strokes on the side or on my palette to ensure the lines are the quality that I want before I start painting on the panel. I also try to use a fairly new flat brush that has a nice clean rectangular shape and a sharp edge to draw the lines with. And I pretty much only use this brush to do underpainting sketches and for no other purpose, to ensure the brush stays nice and clean and new for as long as possible. When I'm done transferring and all the proportions look roughly correct, I now take some time to paint a monochromatic grisaille underpainting using the same 2 colors, Bohemian Green Earth and Titanium White. I'm using these 2 colors instead of black and white because I like that the end result is not too grayish or cold. It's a nice kind of neutral foundation which complements the neutral skin tones that I'm going to be painting on top of it later. Whereas if I used black and white, I feel like the end result is so cool that it's almost bluish, and it just kind of throws me off visually. I prefer to start off instead with a monochromatic color base that is closer and more similar to the types of colors I'll be using in the actual painting. And so over the years, I've just found that Bohemian Green Earth works a bit better than black and white. This grisaille step is kind of a new addition to my oil painting process, and it's something I've been experimenting with and really enjoying. I like familiarizing myself with the pose, establishing the value hierarchy, and also just getting a feel for what it's like to render the painting in this beginning stage that is less daunting than working with colors. But most importantly, the grisaille stage helps me with establishing thicker paint application before I move on to the color pass, as I'm someone who struggles with not using enough paint and generally painting too thinly. By laying down a preliminary pass of thicker paint in the easier monochromatic stage, I can make the end result of the final piece feel like a thicker painting. This grisaille took about 2.5 hours, and I think it is time well spent. And that concludes today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching the beginning journey of a painting. I know it's not as glamorous or eye-catching as the color painting portion, but I think it's a very crucial step in the process and can be fun in its own way. Thank you as always for watching, and stay tuned next month for part 2 of this video. And of course, you guessed it, my eternal never-ending sale is still going on in my shop, so if you'd like 20% off your order of prints and originals, just enter the code HOLIDAY at happyd-artist.com. And if you're interested in learning more about how to paint and draw, I have lots of art educational content on my Patreon page, including exclusive video tutorials, step-by-step photo tutorials, live streams, podcasts, and even surprise art gift boxes. All available at patreon.com/happydartist. I'd love to have you join my Patreon family. A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and supporting the art community. Squarespace is the best platform to create a professional website and online shop. Their beautifully designed templates are easy to use for beginners and look great on both desktop and mobile. I've sold my art through Squarespace for almost 10 years, and I can attest to the quality of their online commerce features, whether you want to sell digital or physical items. They also provide useful analytics that help you make the most of your online business. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/happydartist to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Also, if you want to check out more artworks, works in progress, and just random daily artist adventures, feel free to check out my Instagram, and you can follow me at the handle @happydartist.